Okay.
My name is Darienne DeWalt.
I am Hadassa McGlixon,
And I'm Meagan Rodriguez.
and we are the DHI Consulting Company. Thank you for being with us today. We were hired by your company, Loreal, to look into the issue of animal testing within your company. We looked at and are going to talk about the financial, legal, and ethical aspects of this issue and how Loreal can stop animal testing to become cruelty-free and secure your current and future success. I'm now going to turn over to my colleague Meagan to discuss these terms.
So before we begin, we would like to give you a brief overview simply of the terms animal testing and cruelty-free. Animal testing refers to the experimentation done on non-human animals in order to test the safety, in this case, of cosmetics products. Cruelty-free refers to the methods used that avoid the use entirely of non-human animals in this testing. There are alternatives that have been put in place, and we hope that throughout our presentation, you will keep these two terms in mind as we delve into the financial, legal, and ethical aspects regarding this issue. I'll now hand things over to my colleague Darienne to go over a brief history of Loreal.
As you know, you are members of the executive board of Loreal, which is a French cosmetics company founded in 1909. You are the largest cosmetics company in the world, owning 49 different beauty brands, including Urban Decay and Maybelline. You were listed as number 3 on Forbes' list of the world's most powerful brands in 2016, and you're a very successful company. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Hadassa to talk to you about the financial aspects of animal testing.
Thank you, Darienne. Okay, so when we looked at the financial aspects, the first thing that was clear to us was that animal testing is more expensive. So this is clear when you look at all of the costs associated with regulation, research and development centers, policing, monitoring, the cost to get anything certified. And so, quite simply, if Loreal were to stop animal testing, it would immediately save money by not having to put money into animal testing and its extra costs. The next point was that consistency and consolidation across your company by being cruelty-free will save you money. This is also clear that when you have one uniform policy throughout your company, you won't be dividing your costs into 2 different policies, and all of your brands would have the same goal and the same guide in mind when testing its products. And then lastly, consumers are willing to pay more for cruelty-free products. We saw this in surveys of your 18 to 24 demographic group of young females who have admitted that they want cruelty-free products, and so they're willing to pay more for them because of their ethical needs and what they want in their products. Continuing this point further, cruelty-free alternatives are more cost-efficient and successful. This is very similar to the other points where the alternatives have already been tested and certified, and so they no longer require further testing. An example of this would be how Urban Decay and The Body Shop were 2 of your competitors, and they are cruelty-free. As you know, Loreal has since acquired these brands, and they are now a part of your company, but Loreal itself has not become cruelty-free. So while you are purchasing these other companies because of their success in the cruelty-free market, you are not taking on why they are so successful. And so, if you were to stop animal testing and become a cruelty-free company and make all of your brands cruelty-free, you would become the industry giant and monopolize the market. You are already the world's largest cosmetics company. If you became the world's largest cruelty-free cosmetics company, you would have no competition and you would be revolutionizing the industry and leading the way for other brands to follow suit. And so I will now turn over to my colleague Meagan, who will talk about the legal aspects, which go hand in hand with the financial.
So turning over to the legal aspects. Currently, there is a very large global trend towards the elimination of animal testing in the cosmetics industry. This all began really strongly in 1998 when the European Union decided to ban the importation and selling and production of cosmetics goods tested on animals, that had been tested on animals. This began as a phase-out process, so it's taken them years and years to really start applying these changes, but many other countries have followed suit. In 2014, India became the very first Asian nation to place a complete and total ban on the production of, the sale of, and the importation of cosmetics goods that were tested on animals. India, of course, is a huge market, and a change such as strong as that, many other countries also took note. That same year, Sao Paulo in Brazil became a city that decided on its own to become cruelty-free, and it decided to not sell any products that had been tested on animals from the makeup industry. Later in that same exact year, the entire nation of Brazil followed suit. This past January in California, State Senate was presented a petition to begin a ban on the sale of cosmetics that have been tested on animals. As we've seen in Brazil, this can elicit a national change. The current animal testing and legal policies that L'Oreal has been following actually prevent further expansion into the global market. China is the remaining country that requires that brands coming internationally still test out their makeup products on animals. They do not require this for their at-home companies. By doing this, China is therefore barring those companies and brands that are selling to them, that are testing on animals, from expanding into the markets of those countries that have placed a complete ban on those products. For example, a brand that is selling to China that has to test their cosmetics on animals is no longer able to sell to the European Union. All of this has come about thanks to intense social pressure leading to tons and tons of political change. We believe that by becoming a cruelty-free brand and a cruelty-free company, L'Oreal can spearhead this movement and stay on top of the global trends and change, and not get caught behind that huge wave. Because as the change continues on, L'Oreal's brands that continue selling to China will no longer be able to sell to more and more countries. To continue further with the social and ethical aspects, I will turn things over to my colleague Darienne.
When we talk about the ethical aspects of an issue, we need to think about who is being affected. Animal testing affects the animals, it affects your consumers, and it affects your company as a whole. Animal testing harms the animals because it's cruel. One really common test is an eye irritancy test, in which cosmetics, or the ingredients, are rubbed into animals' eyes. This causes extremely painful swelling, discharge, and ulceration. They suffer greatly throughout this process and in other animal tests that are conducted. It's unnecessary. There are many alternatives, including cell culture testing, and your company itself develops alternatives to animal testing. Many of these alternatives are more reliable. Animal testing is, in fact, only 40 to 60% of the time accurate. Whereas other alternatives are frequently more accurate than 40 to 60%. Now that we've talked about how animal testing affects the animals and affects your consumers, additionally, your consumers believe that if something has been tested on animals, it's also safe for humans. However, that's not the case because animal testing is so inaccurate. Now that we've talked about how it affects the animals and how it affects your consumers, I want to talk about how it affects your company itself. Your ethical principles, as stated in your mission statement, are integrity, respect, courage, and transparency. If you were to eliminate animal testing across all of your brands, you would be acting with greater integrity and respect for the animals and for your consumers, because you would no longer be harming the animals, and you would no longer be misinforming your consumers. Additionally, you could act with courage, and you would be able to be more transparent about your methods for testing your products, because you would now have your practices in line with your ethical principles. It would be courageous of you to spearhead this movement and to lead the industry towards cruelty-free alternatives. Simply put, right now, the methods in which you are testing your products are not in line with your ethical principles, and by becoming cruelty-free, you could make them in line with your ethical principles.
In conclusion, Our company proposes that L'Oreal stops testing on animals to become an entirely cruelty-free company across all of your brands. We've just discussed the financial, legal, and ethical aspects of this issue and how they would be able, and how switching to becoming an entirely cruelty-free company would both save you money and lead to future gains, how you would stay on top of the global trends and be able to lead a movement across the globe, and how you would be able to further follow your ethical beliefs that have been promoted in your mission statement. We hope that you take our aspects and our points into consideration when reevaluating your brands, and we hope that you can become the company that we truly believe you can turn to be.
Thank you for your time.
If you have any questions or comments, we would like to hear them now.
Let me suggest this, since we're running a little tight on time. Let's do a few questions, and then instead of feedback now, if you all can give me that at some point, and then I'll communicate that to you. I just don't want to get too far behind too quickly. So,
I have a question. How are we not demonstrating integrity if in fact we're transparent about the fact that some of our products are cruelty-free and some use animal testing? Why does that make us lacking in integrity?
The way that it's listed on the websites of the various companies that do test on animals is that you only test on animals when it is required by the law, which doesn't completely inform your customers. Additionally, the definition of integrity talks about acting with respect towards other individuals, and because you would no longer be harming animals and no longer be misinforming your customers or leading them to believe that it's more effective than it is, that would be acting with more integrity.
And I think on top of that point, integrity I think is about consistency and like a wholesome value of a company. And if you are inconsistent and you are not choosing one way to represent your company, there's something in conflict there about what you value. Because if you can't choose between two methods, one that inflicts pain and suffering on other beings, then there's something missing there, that connect of what integrity means as a whole for L'Oreal.
Yeah, my questions would be very kind of business focused, right? So, you know, you said something about China, which is a huge market.
Yes.
And we obviously want to maintain our market share and increase our market share in China. Mm-hmm. And, you know, is there a way that we can get around that legal aspect of requiring animal testing for some of our products while still doing what you are proposing?
Well, I think that's the current issue that is in place, where due to the policies in different nations, the Body Shop has brought up a petition to the United Nations to call for a global ban on animal testing in cosmetics. Mm-hmm. And so overall, the trend is changing so that more and more nations would be placing a ban. And our belief is that by pulling out of China in the short term would cause a loss in profits, but it would lead to many more future gains, as well as put some more pressure on China as the largest makeup company globally. That would send a very strong message to China, and the consumers would demand a change. By removing those products, individuals in the country would say, we want those back, and if you need to change how you're testing that to get them back, we're okay with it.
Additionally, even in China, the move is towards getting rid of animal testing. Like the companies that are based in China don't have to test on animals, so it's less of a safety concern in China's policy as it is trying to give an advantage to their local companies.
And I think just the last point would be that L'Oreal is a leader in this case, being the world's largest cosmetics company, and it's rather that the China market wants L'Oreal to be there and to be available to their citizens and their consumers. And so if L'Oreal were to lead the movement, as Meagan said, it would put pressure on everyone else. And I think that's what you want to do as a company. That's who you want to be, to look back and say, we decided to perhaps take a momentary loss, but look at where we are now. We've pushed the entire market, the entire industry forward, and that's what it takes in a movement. That's why we mentioned courage, because it does take a step forward that there may be risks, but we believe that the risks are worth it in this case.
Okay, I think that's good.
It's good.
If we're-
Did you have one?
I did, but
Yeah.
it can,
Okay,
we don't
Go
have
ahead.
time?
I'd rather not
Okay.
get too far behind.
Sure,
too
sure,
fast.
sure, okay.
Can we applaud
If
them
you,
now?
if you
can
give
apply
them
now,
a
yes.
question, we'd be happy to answer it and get back to you on it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we
thank
can all-
you.
yeah,
Given
we
the
certainly do
limited
that,
amount of
so.
time.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Thank you so
time.
much.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
We wish you